Hello, my name's Challen and I'm the Edgy Skater. I wanted to do a video today to follow up on part 1 of Adult Skating Myths Busted. Because I know it can be a little confusing coming into the sport and not really knowing what you're capable of as an adult, truly, versus maybe some very all too common and pervasive uh, misperceptions of what that actually is. So, in the part 1 video, I have a nice little list here. Um, the different kinds of physical limitations, or in more cases than not, lack thereof, when it comes to things like learning all of your spin positions, combinations, and flying spins, as well as learning jumps from single axle all the way to triple axle as an adult without necessarily having prior skating experience as a child. So that was number 1 on that list. Then I also covered, kind of hand in hand with that, um, the range of mobility and flexibility that adults can achieve. I also covered learning how to really clean up your skating skills so that you are just as polished and professional looking as a former elite level skater. I also have different kinds of professional careers you could have as an adult. I explained that we don't really have professional competitive careers, um, even though we are establishing our own world and even becoming adult Olympic circuits. It's not exactly career yet, but there are careers that I did cover, at least 2, and I will get into more in a separate video dedicated specifically to that topic. And lastly, in that video, I covered competing in standard track competitions, even national qualifying series competitions as an adult. So for part 2, I would like to go into 5 other common myths and misconceptions about adult skaters. So the first thing I have is for any of you who are interested in any kinds of pair skating or ice dancing in a partnered sense. Good news is, as an adult, I actually believe, controversial as this may sound, I actually believe that your likelihood of finding a partner, especially an opposite sex partner, is more likely as an adult than a standard track amateur competitive skater. And there's a few reasons why. Super briefly, you're not necessarily competing for the same things, so the same kinds of expectations and barriers about getting someone to agree to skate with you or not are not necessarily really there. And also, more so than that, is as an adult, you probably have a better chance of convincing a friend or a partner or meeting someone looking for a partner to skate with you because there's just more people available. There's more adults willing to give these disciplines a try than there necessarily are standard track skaters willing to give them a try. And between that and the qualification barriers being different, you have more of an odds finding someone and getting a yes from them. I I feel like it's more than just my opinion. I feel like I've seen this, but I will stand by it if anyone tells you different. I think it's true. Another thing is copying more serious competitive or elite training structures. So, what do I mean by this when I say training structures? So, when most people begin figure skating lessons, they're going to start with a coach. And that coach is basically going to be responsible for teaching them everything, whether that's in group classes or private one on one lessons, whether you're starting with something like a learn to skate type system or you're going straight into the USFSA system. Your single coach is responsible for teaching you all the different moves, all the different jumps and spins, putting your programs together, choreographing said programs, all of that stuff. Now, if you were to move up in a standard track mindset to try to get to more and more tougher levels of competition, what will most likely happen at some point is that you will hire a coach who is essentially the head coach. And the head coach has multiple coaches that work under them that are essentially employed or private contractors that work with that head coach who are specialists. So if you've ever heard anyone talk about, I have a jump specialist coach, I have a spin specialist, I have a footwork specialist, that's what they're talking about. And unless your primary coach or your only coach is a former pairs or ice dancer as well, pair skating and ice dancing will always require specialty coaches. It's not a skill that single skaters can teach. Same for synchronized skating. Not just anyone can teach that. But we'll get more into those on a separate video. But as an adult, you can copy those structures if you really wanted, and you have that kind of individual or training area around in your local skating club. Usually you'll have at least one or two coaches at the bare minimum that have the structure. Some skating clubs, virtually the far majority of coaches have that structure. You basically pay for the head coach and you get their team underneath them. Now, you're still paying those coaches individually for lessons. It's not like it's all going to the head coach and getting divvied out later or anything, but you're basically buying a team. And you can absolutely capture that as an adult. You don't have to be a young elite skater to use that training format if you want to explore it. Another thing I have is there's this idea that there's not a lot of adult skaters. It's a child-dominated sport. So to clear that up real quick, it is child-dominated in the sense of the standard track system is full of people that are or started out as minors and are continuing their careers. That is true. But the vast majority of the skating community, whether we're talking competition or not, but even if we are talking competition, a lot of it is becoming less and less about that. Adult skaters are, I'm going to kind of go on a quasi limb and say, are becoming, if not have already become, the financial backbone of the figure skating sport, at least in the United States. So what I mean by that is adults are outnumbering children. Adults are spending more money on themselves collectively than parents of these children necessarily are. I know it doesn't always seem like that, but I want you to think about the retention rate of kids. A lot of kids will get into skating, and when they find out what a tough sport it is, they're probably not going to be there 3 years later. Some of them won't even be there a season later. Adults, when they make the decision to get into figure skating, they typically will stay in for multiple seasons before they leave, or in some capacity or another, they just stay. Adults have a lot of staying power. And as a response to that, there are adult-specific summer camps, which is like literally a skating training boot camp you go away to, or if your own rink has it, they're usually 5 days a week, sometimes even more, sometimes less. Includes your on ice and your off ice, even though you might have to buy them as separate packages. But it's literally a training boot camp. Because think about it, when we compete in the winter and spring, that on the televised sense, it's the busy part of the season, but the real busy training part, the time when you're learning new things, trying new things, putting programs together, rehearsing those programs, and getting everything spectator ready, that's summer. That's all summer. And it's great because where other people are outside sweating and wishing they could escape the heat, you're in a nice ice rink. But there's summer camps, there's different kinds of workshops. Workshop being something like usually a coach will bring in someone, usually a pretty big name person, and they will do a 1 to several day long, maybe long weekend training seminar or workshop where skaters can sign up. There's not usually any qualifications. You might be divided according to level, but basically if they have X many seats and you sign up and before those seats run out, you get to participate in this seminar or workshop and whatever classes that entails with this, hired outside professional, who again is usually someone pretty cool or some big name that you either see on TV or works behind the scenes with people on TV. So this can be really fun, and they have those just for adults too. You could participate potentially in one that is for the general standard track skating community, but you also have adult specific ones. So we have those, and we also have meetups. So these are usually discipline specific. So single skating, pair skating, ice dancing specific. There's probably a couple other sub-disciplines, but I haven't looked as much into those. I'll make a point to research that for another video later. But what I mean by this is really popular ones are ice dance weekends. Adult skaters love ice dancing, and so they'll have these ice dance socials, which exist in the standard track, but they're far more popular and pervasive in the adult skating community. And again, what you would do is you would go to this place, or if your local place is holding it, you just show up where you normally go. Again, you would pre-register ahead of time, pay any fees or dues that are applicable, and so long as you did it when they had enough seats open, they'll bring in coaches, they'll let you mingle, socialize. It's usually more about meeting other skaters, maybe finding a partner, than it is necessarily about training or lessons, but there will usually be some lesson component. But these types of meetups for all the disciplines do exist. And like I said, adult skating is rapidly expanding, and in Europe, it's even more expansive than it is in the US. And they're just going to become more and more numerous, and I'll start to make a list of some of the more popular ones and try to get the info on them for next year so that you can find out about them in advance versus when they're already going on or have already passed. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and I know some people have strong feelings about both of these things. The first thing I'm going to address is adult skaters not necessarily following the typical equipment level progression as a younger standard track skater. So you go in for your first pair of skates, let's say, and while there are many beginner models, and you will probably be somewhere within a beginner model or intermediate model, adults sometimes, there's a variety of factors behind this, might end up starting off their skating journey in equipment that is technically ranked for a more advanced skater than their skill level. And the majority of the time, this has to do with the level of support offered in the more intermediate and advanced levels. So I'm going to, at some point, bring my trusted skate fitter on, and I'm going to let her explain some of these things in more detail so you're getting it right from a very reputable source, how this can be broken down, what the factors are, and why it's sometimes a good idea and even necessary for some adults to maybe skip a few models ahead to get the kind of equipment they need for their body at any given point in time. But it's sort of one of those unspoken myths that you have to follow a certain level of skate level progression. And with blades, I agree you don't need to skip around, but the boots in particular, if you're an adult, you might be skipping around on boot levels, and that's okay. It's potentially a very, very good thing and a safety thing, because this is number one about safety. So wanted to throw that out there. And a more common myth is all the skating clothes, whether that's training, practice gear, or competition wear, is only for children. That is not true. It's also not true that, children or not, figure skaters rely solely on figure skating brands and companies to supply their active wear. And the more you begin to work up your cardio in your training sessions, that usually happens as you become more advanced, but not necessarily for everyone. Some people are starting off as beginners and getting a very huge cardio workout from their skating. Your body temperature will rise, you'll get warmer. You might reach a point where you don't even need winter-specific workout apparel to be more than warm and comfortable on the ice. And there are skating brands who are becoming more size inclusive and have always been adult inclusive. Again, a lot of times we will outsource to different kinds of active and sometimes not even specifically active wear fashion. So there are a lot of options for things that will fit you as an adult that you don't have to worry about trying to shop in the children's department of athletic wear. It's ridiculous, but a weird, pervasive myth. So that is 5 more myths covered and busted. I hope that this video gives you a little bit more reason to feel optimistic and more informed. And if anyone gives you any sort of resistance about any of these things, you can send them my way, and I will make more detailed videos on these different individual things in the future. A lot more detail about breaking them down with more specific real-life examples. I hope that this video finds you well and that you're having a good day and have a good skate. Goodbye.